Hey, welcome back to Meteorology Lab. This dark cloud that you see here, this is all tropical moisture streaming north. And it's sort of a warm frontal type of low cloud. And it's basically just running south to north. I was trying to capture the fast motion. Not sure if I quite got that, but anyway, there it is. Okay, let's take a look at the charts and see what we got going on. You can see down there in Texas, yeah, there's that front there, and we're just seeing overrunning over the top of that, and that's what we had there on that opening clip. This is an old frontal boundary that got kind of laid down in that area a few days ago. And then up to the north we have a more, this is more polar air coming straight southward. And we've got the Super Bowl in Minneapolis tomorrow. Looks like we're going to see some pretty cold conditions with this fresh continental polar air mass moving south. And we can see temperatures well below zero up north of Bismarck and north of Duluth. If we take things a little further north, there's a look at the polar high pressure there. And we can see that that's centered on British Columbia and Yukon. And up to the north, we've got a bit of a blizzard going on in the Northwest Territories here. You can see we're down to about -4, -5, and we've got winds gusting up to 36 and up actually 41 knots there. That's around Copper Mine, Northwest Territories. And if you go up even further north, it looks like we're bringing in some really cold temperatures in the Canadian high Arctic islands. We've got -42 there at Grise Fiord and Eureka there. Okay, here's a look at the thickness and pressure. There's the cold air coming down out of Canada, and the leading edge of that cold air is going to be running something like that from about Chicago down I-44 to Springfield, and maybe just south of Wichita, and then up to the Rockies and Wyoming and Idaho. It looks like maybe the tail end is up in the Vancouver area. Can't quite make out that frontal boundary to the south in Texas. There's just really not enough detail on the thickness here, and that's more of a consequence of the limited resolution we have in the radiosonde data. So we would kind of supplement that with other tools such as surface analysis and continuity there. And it looks like we can kind of pick that up a little bit on potential temperature. Definitely, you can see a potential temperature contrast there just off the caprock, and looks like offshore we've got not only cyclonic turning, you can see that going on right there, but we've got a potential temperature contrast. So that's what we would see with possibly a front coming north there. And then there's that fresh polar air coming out of the northern regions there. Okay, so that's pretty much the picture. Not much else going on elsewhere. We can take a look at the mesoscale charts, and let me see if I can find a good one for that. Yeah, this will cover Minnesota here. So we run this up to this evening, and that's, yeah, right here. This is about the current chart. So this is about to leave Minnesota there. And that's come through Omaha there and southern Nebraska. And, of course, we got a warm front wing right there. And let's see what temperatures are going to be like up in Minneapolis tomorrow. So it looks like we're going to start out at -2. Maybe -3 there, according to the AM. And then we'll be up to only 6 degrees there. I think kickoff time was, I think that was 5:30, so that's going to be 2330Z. So wow, 4 degrees there. And then we've got west winds about 10 knots, so a little bit of a wind chill. It's definitely going to be below zero. So yeah, that's definitely going to be a cold one there. And then we'll be down to about 0 to -1 that night there. But during the game there, we're just going to be seeing high pressure down over Nebraska there. This is typical cold air advection. They're going to be kind of on the backside of the cold air advection. Most of the worst will be out in Wisconsin, so it could be a much more dismal game right there. The winds will be kind of dying off towards the backside there. And then just for the rest of the week real quick, high pressure moving on to the southeast, and then we start getting the downslope flow picking up from the central plains there, and things warm up to about 20 degrees by Monday. And let's take a look elsewhere. We'll take a look at Texas. On the model charts, this is kind of what these weak fronts look like. You can see offshore we've got about 70 degrees there, whereas inland we've got about 45 around Lufkin and Tyler. That's definitely a temperature contrast there. So we might go something like that with our front. And I don't know. I was tempted to do something like that, but that could be a secondary boundary coming south. And let's see what that looks like through tonight. Yeah, here comes that cold air out of the north on Sunday evening. And that sweeps southward, and you can see a pretty strong temperature contrast. We've got just about 70 at Childress tomorrow afternoon, contrasted just right up the road, 32 at Woodward. And there's that cold air spreading southward. That'll come through DFW around 9 p.m. tomorrow night. And down towards Austin and Houston around Monday morning. Then we get pretty quickly back into downslope flow here, and there's the warm-up from the west. Wow, 78 there at Fort Stockton. Okay, let's see here. I don't think I got my... Yeah, actually, I did. I got my satellite loop all set up. Looks like quite a bit of cold air up to the north. You can see all the yellows and hardly any green, actually. And some very, very cold cloud tops up there in the Northwest Territories there. Okay, let me see how things are looking in the chat room. Got Carl Berghoff here and David Moore. Carl Berghoff says, cold, just finished cleaning up 5 inches of snow. Got Burl H here. Mr. Manlet, 33 degrees at Rockford tonight. 1 to 3 inches of snow expected tonight. Adam Davis is here, taking time out for the show. And Mr. Manlett reporting today was a family day. I appreciate the note about the drone footage, Carl, there at the beginning. And Electric Dog is getting ready for snow. This is the water vapor imagery. Okay, we'll let that play here real quick. And this is a pretty good way to find shortwaves aloft. For example, let's see here. Yeah, right here. These are going to be fast-moving disturbances, moving typically west to east. So we can kind of use this to supplement the heights and vorticity chart there. And we'll take that to the very end, and looks like a little bit of dry air over West Texas there, but we've got subtropical moisture lurking just to the south. And we should see that on the soundings aloft. Looks like some of that has made it up into Texas. And some moisture from the Pacific finally hitting the Pacific coast right there and going around the ridge. And we can see some of that extending all the way into the Dakotas and the northern Rockies there. So let's take a look at that sounding there. I guess we'll start out with Fort Worth, since that's what we were seeing there on the opener. This is typical of an old frontal boundary that's about to be cleared out. It actually looks a little bit like a loaded gun sounding there. You can see it's got that characteristic right there, spreading out. Dry air in the mid-levels, and then we've actually got some moist air aloft, and this is some of that subtropical moisture that I mentioned just a minute ago. And there's that low-level moisture. And we're seeing pretty strong warm air advection through that layer. A little further to the north in Minneapolis, pretty strong frontal inversion up there, about 9,000 feet. And below that, we can see winds transitioning to northerly and very stable air below that. This is indicating strong cold air advection through that layer there. And we'll see what's going on at Boise. They're close to that plateau high there, but they've got northwesterly flow at all levels. So keeping in mind that high pressure is located with your back to the wind and to the right, we would expect that plateau high to be further south down in Nevada somewhere. So they're probably between that and the polar front. Looks like some fairly dry air there near the surface, but aloft 15,000 feet and up. Looks like a lot of altostratus and cirrostratus up there. And we'll take a look up at Edmonton. And yeah, they're very cold. I guess I'm not too sure where this tropopause is. It could be down there at about 20,000 feet. I don't see an indication off to the right side there on the data, but I do see we go from kind of a dry adiabatic lapse rate up to some stable lapse rate, and a pretty strong drop-off of humidity up above that level. And below that, definitely a cold column, and looks like some air mass modification down in the lowest couple thousand feet. All right, so let's take a look at the forecast. Let me get these charts all lined up here. I decided to go with the GDPS, the Canadian model, and there's a couple of reasons for that. Let me get everything synchronized here. Okay, there's the GDPS, ECMWF, and GFS. And what I want to do is look at the data for about the 9th at 12Z. So let me get these all synchronized. Okay, so the GFS just showing northwesterly flow across much of the U.S. Looks like a little bit of a wave coming through the Dakotas and Wyoming. And you can see a ridge built up into Alaska there. ECMWF's version. Kind of similar. Got a ridge up to Alaska, some troughing right there over, looks like the Dakotas into Montana. However, the GDPS has got a much different picture. They're kind of carving out this strong trough in the western U.S. Okay, so there's that to contend with. That kind of makes the GDPS a little bit of an outlier. I was also looking at the surface data. And let me get all that lined up here. We're going to look at the 9th at 12Z. Okay, ECMWF bringing down this 1050 high in the Dakotas and Montana. GDPS got a very similar pattern right there. GFS is going for a much weaker pattern, however, and this makes the GFS the outlier in the low levels. And based on the history of the GDPS, I think I would probably trust that a little bit better, because it has been kind of backing off a little bit on the strength of these polar air masses. So let's go ahead and roll it forward here. Okay, so there's that cold air mass coming down, driven by this 1040 millibar high. And we're going to see that push southward through the Central Plains tomorrow. And the high pressure area, you can see it's coming in close proximity there to Minneapolis, right around about 3 p.m. So that's what will help the winds die down a little bit. But it looks like as that high continues moving to the southeast, later during the evening, we're going to see that pressure gradient come back, and the winds will pick up probably after dark there. Although diurnally, that should shut it down a little bit, but I would kind of keep that in mind there. And let's see, high pressure continues to the southeast, and then we get this reinforcing shot on Monday. So this is shot number 2 coming down. So we're kind of at about 2-day intervals here, and this hits Texas around Tuesday. Looks like a little bit of shower activity out ahead of that. And then high pressure covers much of the central U.S., and here comes system number 3, and this looks a little stronger. And the 9th and 10th have been looking a little bit stronger for weeks now on these systems. So I guess this number 3 outbreak is likely to be kind of strong, as we're showing here. So this will be probably a Great Lakes system with this Alberta Clipper. Out in the plains, it should be a little bit on the dry side. Then it'll move through Texas over the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. But here's where the GDPS is going with this Pacific system due to this troughing out over the western U.S. And if that does hold, then we're going to be seeing a system moving from the Arizona Four Corners area towards West Texas for around Sunday and Monday, around the 11th and 12th. And you can see it crossing there, West Texas. So this is probably a little bit pessimistic, and I'm not sure whether this is actually going to happen. We're just going to have to look, I guess, at tomorrow and the next day's data to see if the other models fall in line with this. But there is a potential for wintry weather in Texas, Oklahoma, and New Mexico for around next weekend. And that crosses over on the other side of the ridge, and looks like it dies out a little bit, and the models are getting us with a second wave there, but it looks like there's enough warm air advection ahead of this to where this next shot should be mostly liquid, and yeah, indeed, that's what happens there. And then, let's see here, number 4 coming down for Tuesday the 13th. And then we get to the end of the sequence, and then we'll pick up the GFS. Okay, I think this is number 4 here, picking up with the GFS on the 13th. GFS going out a little bit strong with this next system, and that should move through pretty quickly there. High pressure covering much of the U.S. there. And then a little bit of an Alberta Clipper, so once again, looking for more cold weather in the Great Lakes and Midwest there. Pressure falls up in Canada, indicating a little bit of a respite. And we're starting to get pretty far out there. I think the 19th here, that's way in the future, and I'm not too sure we can really trust any of that. But we will have this dominant northwesterly flow and at least maybe 4, maybe 5 outbreaks of cold air. And then maybe we can start looking at a little bit of spring weather here soon. Okay, and Carl Berghoff points out the long-range CPC still looks like a warm-up coming for the week of the 11th and 17th. Megan John, 1 degree in the Arrowhead of Minnesota tonight, wind chills -20, -30. And Sue M, waiting for snow overnight. Okay, well, that's all I've got for tonight. I appreciate you all watching. Hopefully we'll see you all tomorrow night, and have a good rest of the weekend. See you tomorrow night. Take care.